Steven, how's life on the Ark?
Uh, Busy,
Busy?
very busy, but
It,
very exciting. Yes.
do you have a whole zoo on board now?
We have a team. You could call it a zoo. Yeah. We have a team. We have integrators that are very interested and very much waiting for us to launch. So like we have a good a bunch of people together. Yes.
Yeah, so we kind of skipped the part where, you're Steven Roose.
Yes.
You're the CEO of Second. But before you worked at Second, you were a long time builder of another second layer protocol,
Yes.
which was at Blockstream, right? So you were one of the main engineers that was working on the Liquid network. How did you get into like Bitcoin and working on layers and like what's like the we can get to ARC stuff later, but
Okay. Okay.
like
Well, Bitcoin, I discovered Bitcoin. I don't even remember how. When I was in university studying computer science, I just got passionate by it, learned a lot about it. As a student, you have a lot of time to do side projects and stuff like that. You don't really have to go to classes, they're optional. So I spent a lot of time just trying to do stuff. I implemented like a Bitcoin library in Dart at the time, which was my favorite language, and I now
oh
regret.
wow, that's a
So
really
that
interesting
thing is
choice.
somewhere out there. I spent a lot of time on Bitcoin Stack Exchange,
Okay.
and yeah, I just learned. So then when I graduated, I actually majored in AI, which now is like the big thing. But I was not so interested in it anymore. I just wanted to work in Bitcoin. So I started looking
What
for
year was that? That was like
2016.
2016.
16,
Oh
yeah.
my god, that was a long
Yeah.
time ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So then, yeah, I just wanted to work in something with Bitcoin. I think it was a bear market, so it was really hard to find.
Jobs.
Interestingly, I actually interviewed with Blockstream in
Right.
2016.
Wow. That was
Um,
early then. They started in
yeah,
like
that
2014,
was like
2015, right?
directly with Greg Maxwell because at the time there was no recruiter, so it was just first call with Greg Maxwell. But then like they said like, oh yeah, we're maybe interested, but I need to run it by some other people. I can get back to you in a month. And then a month later, I was like, yo, and he's like, oh, I totally forgot. I need to run it by the next board meeting, so it's gonna take another month.
Oh no, wow.
And then eventually, I just like took another job,
Right.
regretting. And then 2 years later, like Blockstream was in a different phase. They had just raised some money. They had a recruiter.
So
So
they
like,
actually had a recruiter now?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And then
okay.
it was easier. Like, I think I talked with Peter on IRC, like, you guys hiring? And he's like, yeah, yeah.
That's Peter Willa, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And then it was a lot smoother, right? Yeah, yeah. The dedicated recruiter person
they had
following.
a little more. What year was
So
that? So you
that
first
was
talked to them in
2018. Yeah, that was 2 years
2016,
later.
and then
Yeah.
2 years later, 2018. And when you joined Blockstream, what did they hire you to work on then? Like, what was your project?
Yeah. So the Lightning Network was a hot new thing then,
It was very hot and
and
new,
I was like
yeah.
very excited. I really wanted to work on Lightning, but like I was like a nobody, so I was like, I do what they tell me, and they told me, yeah, you're gonna be in the Liquid team. I was like, but I mean, I learned an immense amount of things about Bitcoin, about also programming, C++, Rust, like everything. I
Yeah.
learned a lot in that time,
It's
so
a
I'm
big
very
stack.
grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked a lot with Andrew, with Greg. I don't want to forget some people, but like there was a lot of very smart people in the team, and
Like
I'm very happy.
Pablo, like
Pablo joined a bit later. Yeah, I learned
later.
lots from
Okay.
Pablo as well. Pablo kind
Okay.
of joined when I was already thinking of when am I when can I leave this
Sabbatical.
behind.
Got it. Okay.
Liquid is cool, but it was also churning. Like it's a slow moving project.
It's a slow
So
moving
you get
project. It's a fork of Bitcoin Core, right? So every
yeah,
time that they change Bitcoin Core, you have to merge stuff in. So that's like a thankless task, I think.
yeah,
A lot of work.
yeah. I mean, the Liquid team, we take a lot great care to be sure that everything works as we want. So there's like a very big testing process. Everything's very conservative. So as a fresh engineer, just in his
Oh,
first or second job, it's like oof, I wanna move it, right? So,
yeah. And
but
yeah.
it teaches me a whole great lot about being careful, testing stuff, how to build stuff in a robust way, and
And like the adoption curve on Liquid's been kind of slow too. So in terms of like
yeah,
having like, oh no, we've got 1 million new users this week. I mean, as software engineers, there's a lot of different kinds of projects. Not everyone's project takes off such that there's like
exactly,
5 million users
exactly.
tomorrow kind of thing. But to some extent, it's more adoption and use is exciting to see your code out in the world, right? And Liquid for I think there's tons of. I was just talking to someone who was saying there's like more than $1 billion of assets issued on it now. But this was Liquid's been around for a decade. Like it took a long time to get to where it is.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years actually, Liquid has been. I
Really
mean, I think
growing.
Liquid has
Yeah.
always been a long-term project, like a moonshot thing.
What
Like,
do they call
oh,
it? Low time preference.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
exactly.
So in my time, there was very little usage of Liquid. There was some people like the Vulpen Ventures was doing Fuji Money, Liquid Taxi. They had some
Oh, with
small
like
things on.
Marco Tiero
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
I
they
think
were building
Barack
some
was an
things, and then
early.
Borek was like, we always
For
joked that Borek and Marco were our only users because then they were
there
like
was
kind
some
of,
really like very
yeah, and they
fabulous
built
first
actually cool
users.
things, but no
Yeah,
one was using them because
they didn't
Bitcoin
have
fees were also
users.
low, and I don't know, there was not so much demand.
I also felt
And
like
then,
Liquid got a really unfair rap and like the like mind share of people because they'd be like, oh,
yeah.
Blockstream, something something.
Yeah, that was a whole phase when people hated Blockstream just for being Blockstream.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're like, oh, we don't want to use this
Yeah,
thing that the company we hate is using. So definitely a challenging project, both from like
yeah.
an engineering standpoint, but also from like a user adoption standpoint. And so then, so you did all this great work on Liquid, but you're ready to do something else. Um,
I took a sabbatical, like many engineers do that work on Liquid for
yeah,
four
me
or five
too, me
years.
too. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, or yeah, on any big open source
yeah.
project. Yeah. So I took a sabbatical year.
That's cool.
Also, some things changed in my personal life, so I went to travel for a year, and then while I was traveling, I actually knew Burak because he was doing some stuff on Liquid before. I had met him at a conference before, and he was inventing this thing called Arc, and I knew Burak could build stuff. Like
He's
he was
brilliant.
smart.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so
So
brilliant.
then,
Yeah.
not many people were actually understanding this Arc thing. So I was asking Burak like, "Yo, like maybe we should meet so you can explain how it works because I can also not understand it from the documentation you put out." So then, like during my sabbatical, we met. I thought it could be a thing. I thought it was very interesting. It was definitely a very novel thing, something that was never done in that way before. So, and I was like, yeah, I need the next thing to work on anyway. So
And he's like, I
I
mean,
kind of just rolled into
Burak
that.
was like really pitching it as like the better Lightning. Like it's gonna fix all the problems of Lightning, right?
He oversold it.
He definitely sold
Uh,
it. Yeah.
yeah, he definitely oversold it a little bit. We found a lot of caveats, but we also found a lot of new things that could solve some of those caveats. Yeah, it's been a ride, but it's been very interesting.
So now you're working on Arc full time.
Yes,
You have your own company called Second.
yes.
Um, do you okay? This is maybe a cheeky question, but are you calling it Second because it's the second Arc implementation, or what's
No,
the?
I mean that's a fun gimmick. There's a lot of fun jokes you can do with second. That was kind of a little bit of the joke. That's the
Yeah.
second Arc implementation, but the main reason was because like Arc was a thing, but we didn't know Arc was gonna be the thing forever, right? So we didn't want to
Oh, I
tie
see.
ourselves to the Arc too much. Like okay, we built second layer stuff, so we called it second because
And
it's
Arc
more
is
generic.
that's a really good way to think about it. Okay.
Yeah,
And Arc is the first second layer protocol that you guys are
yeah, and
building. Or
if
your
something
second if you count Liquid is a first one. It's your second layer. Sorry.
that I'm working on,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that could be also. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with second, but
Cool.
yeah, we just wanted to be a little bit more generic. Like we're working in the second layer, and if at some point something a lot better than R comes up, why would we not pivot? And
So you guys, I mean, I ran into Jonathan he's now working at Lava, but he was
yeah, yeah,
working
he's
in
a good
Taproot
friend.
Assets for a long time. You guys met up at the MIT Expo, and we're working on like doing some intense whiteboarding, is my understanding, to come up with like a new protocol like called ERP or maybe ERC,
Erk,
maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
Erk.
So it sounds like, I mean, you guys are you're building Arc, but you're also like iterating on different constructs and like what exactly
Exactly,
should
yeah,
that protocol look like, that kind of work. So,
yeah.
I mean, what happened to ERC? Is it something you guys, is that now what Arc looks like for you guys, or is it?
So we're trying to balance two different worlds, right? We're trying on the one side to build an art product that works today on Bitcoin, right?
Right.
Like make the best out of what we have without having covenants, like with the current scripting capabilities. And that's what we're gonna do. And like we're ready to ship on mainnet as soon as we can to have something that's the best that we can build today on Bitcoin. But on the other side, I'm also very interested in extending the Bitcoin functionality and the expressivity of the Bitcoin consensus and scripting engine. And so ERC and HARC and some other designs that we came up with, they they work only with the covenants.
Got
So they
it.
were like,
Okay.
okay, what if we have these covenants? Like, how much better can we bring a user experience if we have this extended functionality in Bitcoin?
Right. Cool. Okay, so it's more like future sketching out, like this is what we want as possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so you're reminding me now. You've been really instrumental in terms of like a lot of the lower level. I mean, in addition to being a CEO, you're also like one of probably the most experienced developers working on Bitcoin protocols these days. I mean, you started over a decade ago.
Yes.
you learned with like Maxwell and Peter Willa at Blockstream. A lot of the work that I've seen you
Maxwell had
doing.
already left,
Oh, I'm sorry.
unfortunately.
Okay,
He was
yeah.
there when I first interviewed. 2 years later, he was already gone.
I see.
But yeah.
Okay, I see. But it's like so I've seen you like active on the mailing list and on Delving Bitcoin, talking about how to bring covenants, or I like to call it, say, more transaction introspection
Yeah.
to Bitcoin layer one. What's the current status of those projects? Like, what's your focus on right now?
Well, my focus, yeah. So it's been a long ride. I've had I'm interested in all of them, right? Like there's a lot
I
of very
know.
good
Yeah.
ideas out there. There's a lot of like really good people working on really good proposals, and it's a really hard challenge to pick between what is really great and what we want and what is available now and safe now and we can find consensus on. So it's a really difficult game, but I think the momentum around CTV and checkstic from stack kind of showed itself in the last year or two, and we're trying to just get that momentum, keep that momentum going. We recently made some kind of next iteration of the proposal by trying to address some of the feedback that we've gotten over the last half a year maybe. Trying to limit it in scope, mostly like when it comes to scripting context. So we want to keep it taproot only.
Yeah.
It's just one other iteration. We can definitely go back to another drawing board, but this is I think kind of from the consensus built around CTV and checkstic from stack,
Yeah.
and then the feedback that we've gotten on that. I think for me this is like the best way forward to keep this momentum going and get the same functionality enabled on Bitcoin in a more efficient way. I think in a better way, and get this like first cool building block that we can
Yeah.
actually build a lot
A
of
new
things with.
building
Yeah.
block. Yeah. And so this new proposal is called. There was a name for it, but I'm forgetting. Like a.
Well, we were talking names. I wanted to call it template sig because you can do rebindable signatures using the template hash, right? But
That's cool.
it's one new opcode called template hash, and then two opcodes that already existed before, checkstic from stack and internal key, mostly because it achieves the same functionality as CTV and checkstic from stack, but it makes it way more efficient byte-wise when using rebindable signatures.
Oh, that's really cool.
And
Okay.
that's what, for in Lightning with L2
Yeah.
or Lightning Symmetry,
Yeah.
you really want to use these rebindable signatures. And with CTV and
Yes.
checkstic from stack, in the older way of building this, well, how it was built when it was initially conceived, like many years ago,
Many
you
years
would have
ago.
to spend another 66 bytes in your witness to achieve a rebindable signature. While with the template hash and the internal key added, you can just you totally eliminate those 66 additional bytes.
Wow.
So
Okay, that is a big
yeah,
savings. That's
so
cool.
that's yeah. So while we were doing this thinking, like you mentioned, Arc and ERC, with ERC, for example, this other flavor of Arc, we're also using rebindable signatures a lot. So I started to be Arc built to be like convinced more that the rebindable signatures is gonna be like a more powerful use case than just
They're really
templating.
powerful. Yeah.
So, and
I'm
I
a big
couldn't
fan.
also come
Yeah.
up with any use case of templating transactions that didn't also have alternative spending paths. So then the TapScript only context kind of makes sense because you're gonna have a tap tree anyway,
Right.
right?
And it's more efficient on chain if you're able to use top leaves because you only have to expose the one that you
Exactly,
use.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a multisig or a template, or you have a template plus some additional things, then you're gonna use script paths anyway. So yeah, so it becomes more efficient. But it's mostly about the signature case, I think.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been like a bit of like a fancy like signatures are powerful and the more power we can put in signatures, I feel
Yeah.
like that's like as a maybe this is just me being like a little bit of a dumb brained like not dumb but like if you put too much in script I start getting confused. But if I'm like, okay, this is a powerful signature and the signature can match these things that look like this, that's just like easier for me to reason about. Yeah. What do you think about? So there's big news like last week that Simplicity got launched on Liquid. How do you
Yes.
feel about that? Like, where do you put that in like your? Because Simplicity is like, when I was talking to Russell O'Connor about it recently, he was saying adding Simplicity is basically like every idea that was talked about on the Bitcoin mailing list, minus like a couple things, you can now do in
Yeah.
Simplicity. So like we don't. I feel like it's like we don't really have to do trade offs anymore. Like we get the scripting language that we want. You're sighing really heavily over there. What are you thinking about?
I
Yeah.
mean, it is amazing. It is great. I didn't think they would like pull it off eventually. I mean, I kind of did because there's some really smart people working on this. It's definitely like really cool. I think I remember maybe when I was still there, we were thinking about how we could upgrade, like how to do the soft fork and stuff like that. But yeah, it actually happened. And I heard already people build a ZK snark verifier in Simplicity, and it looks actually not that giant in size, not that impossible to deploy. So it's true, you can do everything with Simplicity. But it's also like a very big mind shift and harder to convince the whole Bitcoin developer ecosystem. Like, hey, let's just all abandon everything we've built ever.
But it's not. But it's not. So I mean, yeah, I like. I totally hear you. But I don't. It didn't sound. We're talking to Russell and the conversation that we had. Not to shill, but we did have an interview with Russell. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. But the one thing that he talked about that I thought was really cool is like basically you can layer in. Taproot scripts that are currently with Simplicity scripts. So you could have a Taproot
Yeah.
mass where some of the leaves are written in Simplicity and some of the leaves are in traditional Taproot script. So if you did add the
But
template hash project, you could do still have some of those leaves and then have Simplicity like interwoven in depending on what your use case was.
I think as a developer, it wouldn't be super nice if you had different leaves use different kind of paradigms for doing. I think you would prefer to have all your leaves be simplicity if that's the way you're doing things.
It's
I'm not
definitely
sure
more
about that.
simple, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think not many developers have thought about what they would do if simplicity or when simplicity would come out because we just never really saw it happen, and it
Sure.
suddenly is here. So I think now people are finally gonna like start thinking like, okay, this simplicity thing, how can we use it? What can we do with it? But then again, there's people who prefer to build Bitcoin only and they don't want to build on Liquid. But I think it can at least enter their mental like awareness and their yeah. I think I'm very excited. I mean, it's definitely cool. It's definitely like a well thought out, right? How much Bitcoin script is not well thought out. It was kind of like hacked together, like, oh, we need to do something flexible, so we do this. Simplicity is the exact opposite. Like Russell talked about this for what 7 years, and so yeah, I mean, it's definitely like for for something being the next generation Bitcoin expressivity, I think simplicity would be the best contender. But I don't think we should wait for it and stop trying to make Bitcoin script a little bit better, especially with things we already kind of understand and know what they can and cannot do. Because simplicity opens this entirely new box of like being able to do everything.
Yeah, I've wondered like part of me is like is there something that Simplicity can do that like will change how ARC works? You know, I don't know. It seems way too early to start asking those questions, but
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
I
we'll have
think
to do a follow up interview in a year and see
yeah,
where you are on Simplicity. Yeah.
cool, yeah, yeah. I think it can definitely like totally change the game entirely. Yeah, Arc is kind of conceived as being make the best out of Bitcoin's design kind of thinking. So like if the design would become totally different, like there might be no longer a space for Arc. You never know. I mean, it's definitely. I always have this opinion. Like I really like Bitcoin because Bitcoin is simple. Like
Yes.
from a architecture computer science point of view, it's way easier to understand something like Bitcoin compared to something like computer architecture or like complex systems like that. Bitcoin actually, if you think about the core primitive, is very simple. And then Arc fits really well in that because actually Arc is very simple to understand. If you have a whiteboard with someone who understands the Bitcoin protocol, they understand Arc immediately. And then when you get into this really complex systems with covenants and all that, like what you could build with simplicity, like stuff like ZK zero knowledge proofs, snarks, it's a different game and it's harder to convince people that it is actually secure. Like someone that's
Uh,
smart and has like a lot of money, they're
uh,
gonna trust this Bitcoin system because they know exactly what's gonna happen.
so the Simplicity in Bitcoin may be
Yeah,
nicer than Simplicity the protocol. I'm kidding.
yeah,
Okay, okay,
exactly.
that's cool.
Yeah, I think simplicity on purpose was displayed, no? Because it's like, yeah, it's supposed to be a very simple language in language theory terms, but like no one thinks it's simple. But I mean, how to build stuff with simplicity itself. But yeah, let's see.
Cool. I'm very excited to see you in Istanbul in a few weeks talking about scaling Bitcoin.
Yes.
We'll have lots of talks about ARC and other layers and ZK stuff. So that's going to be really great. Is there anything like for viewers or people who are interested in learning more about ARC and what you're working on? Where should we send them to go? Like, should they follow you on X? Is there like docs that people
Yeah,
can build on? Are you
yeah.
do
So
testnet?
we have an implementation called Bark live on Signet, so
ARC.
people can
Okay.
just go to second.tech, follow the links. You will find documentation on how to run. Currently, it's only a CLI. It's
Okay.
mostly aimed at developers, but anyone can try it out. You can get a CLI wallet. You have a faucet. You can get some ARC coins, like Bitcoin on ARC, in your wallet. We have a small shop where you can buy some virtual goods,
Oh, cool.
send them over Lightning using your wallet. So you can definitely play with it already. It's all on Signet. It's not on mainnet yet, but it's definitely good to get your feel on how things work in the ARC paradigm because it's nice. It's exciting.
Cool. Thanks so much for
Thank
your
you very
time,
much.
Stephen.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for having me.